Today on Passion for Food, we're going to be making this beautiful Greek custard pie called Galaktoboureko, which is a wonderful egg and semolina custard sandwiched between two buttery layers of phyllo soaked in a wonderfully infused syrup. Not only is this custard dessert delicious, but it's surprisingly easy, so there's no need for us to be putting this off any further. Let's go ahead and jump in and get started with our simple sugar syrup. We're making this first to give the syrup a chance to cool before we put it on our Galaktoboureko. And for the syrup, we're going to need 2 cups of granulated sugar along with 2 cups of water. Now, really, we can infuse this syrup with any flavors we would like. I see a lot of people using orange peel and cinnamon, but me personally, I'm a big fan of lemon in this. But to avoid any bitterness, we really only want the lemon zest. So we'll go ahead and add the whole zest of 1 lemon, and if you want a little more zing in there, add the juice of that lemon as well, but I'm just going to use the zest here today. And there's a reason we call this a simple syrup, because that's it, we're done. We just want to bring this up to a boil and let it simmer for 5 minutes. At which point we can just slap a lid on this and set it aside until we're ready for it. Now, I've seen a lot of disagreements online on the best way to make the custard, but really it's so easy I find all those disagreements a little off-putting. So we're going to be using the old dump everything into the pot technique here, starting with half a gallon of milk, that's approximately 2 liters, along with 1 cup of granulated sugar, along with 1 cup of fine semolina flour. Depending on where you're located, that may or may not be a challenge to find. I found it kind of in the specialty baked goods section along with the almond flour, rye flours, and stuff like that. The semolina is what gives this custard its signature flavor and texture. And unlike regular all-purpose flour, the semolina is actually quite easy to mix in with the milk without forming a lot of lumps. To that, we'll add about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract, along with half a cup of melted butter. The butter doesn't strictly have to be melted, it just makes stirring a little bit easier. And at this point we want to turn the heat on to medium-high and start bringing this up to temperature. And while this warms up, let's go ahead and get our eggs ready. We need a total of 6 large eggs. Now, normally I'd be yoking around with all kinds of crazy egg puns, but I don't want to get you all cracked up. Anyway, we want to give these eggs a really good, vigorous beating. We don't want little bits of scrambled egg in the custard. That is not excellent. So we'll add that to our milk, sugar, and semolina mixture, and we want to just whisk this as it comes up to temperature. Now, this is really the only part of the process where we need to pay attention. We need to stay and continue to whisk this until it comes up to temperature and thickens nicely for us. That should normally take around 5 minutes. You can see the kind of texture we're going for here. That should be super thick. So at this point, we can just put a lid on this and set it aside for a moment while we prepare our phyllo. Now, I know what you might be thinking, hey Graham, but where do I find phyllo dough? Well, you'll have to check your local store, but for me, it's usually in the freezer section next to the pie shells and stuff. So we want our 9x13 baking dish, and I like to apply just a liberal layer of butter to the bottom first. But once we have things all buttered up, we're going to go in with our phyllo pastry, and I like going in 2 sheets at a time. It makes things a lot quicker, and the results appear to be identical. So you can go a single sheet at a time if you're like some kind of giant masochist or something. But that's not how we're doing things today. So we're just going to layer these in 2 at a time, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to look beautiful in the end, trust me. And you want to butter each layer before adding another layer. And we're going with a total of 5. That's 10 pastry sheets in total for the bottom. Once we've buttered that final base layer, we want to go ahead and just pour in all of that beautiful semolina custard. Now, careful not to spill any. We'd hate to have the Greek food police come and take us all into custardy. So we just want to spread this out evenly, making sure we're getting it nicely into all 4 corners. Once we get that all smoothed out, we just want to repeat that same process with the phyllo dough on top with 2 sheets, and then we butter and 2 sheets and so on until we've used up another 10 sheets in total. You may or may not need to trim or tuck your sheets a little, but I was able to just kind of baste the corners down in where I wanted them perfectly, so I didn't have to do any major trimming to my dough here. And one final thing before we slip this into the oven, we want to pre-cut this like baklava. Now that does a couple of things. It makes it pretty, but it also prevents all those little air bubbles from expanding in the oven. But we want to be careful only to cut through that top layer of phyllo. We don't want to go all the way to the bottom. Once we've settled the score with our Galaktoboureko, we can go ahead and whisk this off to a preheated 350-degree oven where this is going to bake for about 45 minutes or until golden brown and nicely puffed up on top. At which point we'll go ahead and pull our Galaktoboureko out, and there's one final step we need. That's that sugar syrup we made right at the beginning. So, I've always heard cold syrup, hot to whatever-ko. So we just want to slowly pour over our lemon zest infused syrup, letting that slowly soak in here. Now here's the truly difficult thing with Galaktoboureko. We need to let this cool completely, preferably overnight in the fridge, in my opinion, gives the best texture on that custard. But once it's nice and cool, we can go ahead and grab a slice here. And just for dramatic effect, I added a little extra syrup from the pan. And finally, that moment we've been waiting for. We go in for a bite of this beautiful Galaktoboureko. I really love the creaminess of this, and it's sweet without being too sweet. It's a really delightful, easy dessert. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Passion for Food. Hopefully I haven't been putting you all to sleep with all of my silly food puns. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please give me a thumbs up below and consider subscribing and hitting that little bell so you don't miss our future episodes. Also, check out some of our other great recipes playing on the screen now. This has been Graham with Passion for Food.